What up my MMA and BJJ homies? It's time to preview what could turn out to be another snooze fest, or an all-out war. Now, truth be told, because of the dynamic of long-time training partners fighting each other, I have been going back and forth thinking about this matchup. Add to the mix, that Usman is now training under Trevor Whitman, who has shown he can radically change a person's striking, things become even more murky. Nonetheless, here's some of my thoughts. By the way, do participate in the polls on my community tab, so that I can get a better feel of who you folks are. Also, please do turn on channel notifications to stay updated. Okay. So here's a quick overview of Gilbert Burns. As a sport grappler, Burns brought an explosive attack style, looking to gas his opponent out, with quick passing and scrambles. In the cage, he brings those same qualities, always looking to take the back, the moment the opponent turtles, where he can then use his submission skills to go for the choke. If you choose to scramble with him, Gilbert is more than willing to match your energy. If you try to muscle out of a position, he is always looking to transition to a submission. Willing to risk losing top position, to go for your back or a submission. Gilbert isn't looking to hold you down for long periods. Yes, he wants to land ground and pound, but if you give him your back or neck, when you try to get back to your feet, he will try to finish. Training with the Blackzilians, and with Usman as a training partner, Gilbert's wrestling has come a long way. In terms of cage control and riding, as well as his takedowns, indeed, you will see shades of Usman. However, while Gilbert is very familiar with Usman's cage wrestling meta, and you might see him try to get into a crossbody ride, make no mistake. If you give him the opening, Gilbert will insert both hooks and go for your back, and look to finish the choke. Naturally, this riskier approach to wrestling at the cage creates more opportunities for the opponent to escape, but because Gilbert has good takedowns, he's pretty confident he can get you down again, even if you do break free in a grappling scramble. Now, on the feet, Gilbert Burns has a few key weapons. Mainly, the low kick, the right overhand, and the left hook. In his early days, it just seemed like he was throwing a random mix of these strikes, looking for a way to shoot for a takedown. But how far Burns has come as a striker, was on display during his breakout fight, against Tyron Woodley, that earned him a title shot. In the opening 30 seconds of that fight, Gilbert slipped a trademark Woodley right hand, and landed a hard overhand. Not to make excuses for Woodley, but that set the tone for the rest of the fight, and made him think twice about throwing his best weapon, his overhand. From then on, it became 25 minutes of Burns keeping Woodley sandwiched between a low right kick, and a left hook. Unable to circle effectively, and backed into the fence, Woodley was pressured into breaking out with overhands, which Burns could easily shoot under. It was a surreal experience, to see a two-time NCAA champ, get out-wrestled by Burns. But it just goes to show, how one or two well-placed strikes, can change the complexion of a fight completely. Now, one particular strike, that Burns has doubled down on, is the left hook. This was the strike that finished Damian Maia, and is a very versatile strike for him. He uses it in several ways. For example, as a counter, against an opponent stepping in to throw a power shot, or against a kick. He likes to use it to set up strikes, like uppercuts, or a cross. He often finishes combinations with it, like after an overhand, or after a low kick. He likes to throw it as he pivots out. He likes to throw it on clinch breaks. He likes to throw it to get into clinches. He especially likes to leap in with that left hook. He has gotten progressively better with it, and now uses it to set up other shots, after he leaps in with a hook. As you can see, he really likes that left hook. Heck, listen to him rant about it here.
A couple of times I saw, because they run, if they run, they run. But when they stay a little bit, I had to go to the side a little bit.
Yeah.
And then hit that hop with the knee. So we hear with the this and then I think it was 3-2 here. It was running, and then
Now, Usman is a flat-footed striker, primarily a puncher, with very little head movement. that's constantly trying to walk you down. It's easy to build the case, especially after the Woodley fight, that Burns, through a combination of low kicks and check hooks, can stick and move, to avoid the takedown or clinch. To help build the case, we can even hypothesize that even if Usman succeeds in getting Burns to the fence, he won't be able to hold him down for long, to land any effective ground and pound. Burns can just trust his grappling, and rather than get stuck in a tripod, Burns can just pull guard, and look to either sweep his way back up, or generate a scramble, that Usman might want to break from, to avoid getting caught. With this kamikaze approach, to counter Usman's cage wrestling, Burns will be able to avoid getting gassed out, and keep this fight on the feet, where he can use his striking to chip away at Usman. After all, if you look at the Maia fight, Usman completely refused to engage with Maia's guard, preferring to just wait for a stand-up. Even when he had Maia stuck in a front headlock, Usman would not even risk going to the back, which would have given Maia a chance to pull guard. With this phobia of grappling experts, one might think Burns has a get-out-of-jail-free card, and can rely on the mere threat of his guard to blunt Usman's ground aggression. Now, this is where a hypothesis like that gets sketchy. Normally, game planning is an exercise that goes on in secret, and both sides only get to show their hand on fight night. But this is a very different fight. Usman knows what Gilbert is bringing to the table, in terms of low kicks and check hooks, and he also helped with Gilbert's preparation for Woodley. Further, the threat of Gilbert pulling guard, as his trump card, seems unlikely. Good grapplers have tried to pull guard on Usman, once stuck in a tripod, some have tried kimuras, some have tried dropping for leg locks. So far, Usman has survived all these attempts, and these were opponents Usman was meeting for the first time. Gilbert and Usman have shared over 200 rounds together, and while there's not much UFC film to observe Usman's defensive grappling, the idea that Usman is going to be bamboozled by Gilbert's tricky guard and scrambles seems remote. Actually, listening to how both of them describe those 200 rounds together is interesting. This is how Gilbert Burns describes it.
And the thing is, we spar so many times. I had so many fights on the Black Zillions. It wasn't sparring, it was a fight.
Who won those?
Both. I won couples, he won couples. A lot of people that watch it, they won. The guys that were watching, they won because, wow, there was a lot of hard sparring.
Now, here is how Usman recalls it.
Do you guys know who's going to win this fight? Like, because of, he's talking about you guys have sparred 200 rounds. I mean, is there like you, him, and a certain group of people in Florida who know exactly how this fight is going to go?
Oh yeah. We know how it's going to go.
To add even more mystery to the mix, here is Rashad Evans, Usman's mentor and fellow Black Zillion member, recalling those sessions.
Sometimes Gilbert will get him, and then, a lot of times, Kamaru will get him, but it was, Kamaru doesn't lose too much when it comes to wrestling.
And thus, this brings us to the central question. Come fight night, are those 200 rounds going to play out again? Listen to what Usman thinks about the advancements Gilbert has made in his wrestling.
He's confident. He feels confident in his improvements that he's made, but you made certain improvements in the last couple of years, last 2 years. I've been doing this. I've been doing this. I've been doing the same thing. I showed you the game. You watched me do it. So you're like, okay, I bought in a couple of years ago. I need to do this to improve. But I've been doing that consistently for years and years and years and years. So we both know what's going to happen.
It appears that Usman knows he has Gilbert's number, and pinning him against the cage is inevitable. Maybe I'm reaching, but it appears that in Usman's mind at least, he's way ahead in terms of wrestling, and it's up to Gilbert to make adjustments, to get off the fence, and force Usman to engage in a striking war.
It depends on him. Those guys dictate how this is going to go. If they've done the homework the appropriate way and they come prepared, then, they might be able to pull out a different fight out of me. Like you saw in the Covington fight. He came prepared and he pulled out that type of fight on me. But if you don't come prepared, it's going to be a one-sided, like every last one of my fights. It's going to be a one-sided beating. So, I'll leave that up to him.
Gamebred didn't bring it. Kamaru brought his end of the share. He dominated in the areas where he typically dominates at. At that point, it's up to the opponent to bring his share. And then at that point, then the battle is contentious. And then at that point, you see who is the better fighter.
Usman has a very specific strategy when he pins you to the fence, and it's not just about looking for a takedown. Listen carefully to what he recalls from the Masvidal fight.
There were certain spots in that fight with Masvidal to where he's up against the fence, and I'm like, I'm not really keeping him here. I'm working, but I'm not really keeping him here. He can get off if he wanted to. I want him to try to get off because he's got to use energy to get off. I want him to try to get off. And he would just hold me and just kind of make faces and kind of make it look like I was holding him there. And I'm not holding you here. You can get off. But he was content with being there. So I'm like, okay, if you're going to be content with being there, I'm the champion. You got to come take this belt off of me. But you don't want it that bad. Some of these guys will kind of help me dictate how this fight's going to play out. If you don't come with your A game, it's just going to be an easy night for me. But when you come with your A game, that's when you really see me bring that dog out.
Now, Usman's plan to force Masvidal to expend energy to escape a cage pin is the exact thing that Burns notes from the Masvidal fight. Listen to his thoughts on it.
He was there, took him down right away, control a lot. He saw that Masvidal was very scrappy on the ground, throwing elbows, being very active. You know what? I'm going to just hold that guy on the cage. And that worked, you know. And then when he felt comfortable, he tried to strike a little bit. He didn't feel comfortable. He went back to the cage. I think he was very disciplined.
Burns knows Usman is looking to cage pin him too, and the onus is going to be on Burns to find a way to break out of the cage and not get gassed out doing it.
I think it will be kind of the same approach. Like, he don't want to take me down because I'm going to make he's going to waste a lot of energy to try to hold me down because I'm going to be very offensive on my back. I think he will try to put me more against the cage than really taking me down to the floor. I'm not going to let the guy hold me and don't do nothing. No, bro, I have my submission. I can wrestle too. I'm going to do open hand slap. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to fight. I'm a fan too. I hate boring fights too.
To play devil's advocate, let's assume Burns can keep off the fence and force the stand-up war that he wants. That brings me to two questions. Will those low kicks and hooks be enough to keep Usman from walking Gilbert down? Remember, Masvidal was a short-notice replacement for Burns. And while we didn't see much stand-up, some of Usman's preparation for Burns did show up in the fight. Early on, Masvidal. Now, the more tricky question, and where I am again left wondering, is how much influence Trevor Whitman has been on Usman's striking, especially with more time to work with him, given the fight was delayed. As I have noted in this study, Trevor understands the power of hooking. And given Gilbert's heavy reliance on this strike, I wonder what surprises Usman has waiting under Whitman's tutelage. One hint, we have that countering hooks will be a big part of Usman's strategy, is this nugget from Rashad Evans.
You seen Dan Hooker just pick Gilbert apart, and a lot of time it was Gilbert falling on the sword. And by that I mean, sometimes when he has that style where he jumps in. He doesn't jab from the outside. He jumps in with looping shots a lot of the times, or he waits back and sits back and try to hit the counter. But those are hooking punches. You know what I'm saying? The hooks are not as long as straight punches. So at the end of the day, a straight puncher will always beat him to the punch if they're smart about the timing and where they place that punch. So, Gilbert can be over aggressive and fall on one of those punches. And I'll tell you right now, the hardest punch I ever got hit with was a jab from Dan Henderson that I did not see happen. And it was because I did exactly that. I fell onto my own sword. I jumped in and he threw a jab. It took me about 2 rounds to figure out what he hit me with, but it was a jab.
That interview is very insightful, by the way. I highly encourage technique geeks to check it out. Anyways, like Rashad notes, straight punches will beat a looping punch any day. And Usman will have the reach advantage, and also likes to throw a lot of straight punches. Also, Usman can fight out of either stance. And his southpaw jab will be a useful tool against someone trying to leap in with a hook. If Gilbert can't safely kick, check hooks will be his lifeline from getting cornered. Neutralizing this weapon will be key for Usman. Now, the obvious thing Usman could be looking to do is to catch Gilbert with a straight, as Gilbert steps in with a hook. Not exactly the same, but Dan Hooker caught Burns very early in the fight with a straight punch, as Burns looked to throw a looping overhand, much like the one that caught Woodley early. And that's just one of several counter possibilities. Not really a kicker, Usman could surprise with a low kick game of his own. Maybe Usman will look to trade left hooks with Burns, just in Gaethje style, and beat him to the punch, like how Dan Hooker did. The calling out of Gilbert's hooks really makes me wonder what surprises Usman has on the feet. In the event, he can't keep Gilbert pinned to the cage. Training footage is scarce, so one can't exactly tell how much of Trevor's mentorship has translated into actual fight mechanics. On the other hand, just a few days to the fight, Gilbert has posted some of his pad work on his channel, and one can see how far his left hook has developed. As you can see, Gilbert has got a lot of other ways to sneak that hook in, not just from a leap from the outside. In particular, he could be looking to stand his ground, to slip Usman's straight punches, and get in close, to throw a hook. In the Covington fight, Usman was very hittable, and Colby's left hand looped around, and caught Usman's static head very often. It's not to say that Usman is a bad striker, but he really doesn't want to get out of the way of strikes, because he wants to level change, and clinch up with you as you plan and throw. I.e., if Gilbert decides to stay in the pocket to counter, he is also giving Usman what he wants, a planted target to take down, or clinch up with, in order to push you into the fence. In closing, Gilbert Burns looked good against Woodley, because Woodley surrendered the center, and let Burns be the aggressor. Against Usman, Burns is either going to have to stand his ground, and not get driven to the fence. Or, if he has to give it up, use a lot of lateral movement, and pot-shotting, to keep Usman from clinching up. Either way, it means throwing a lot of hooks, and one wonders what Usman and Trevor Whitman have in store. Alright folks, that's it for today. Remember to join my mailing list to get updated on my BJJ film study courses. And do let me know in the comments how you think this fight goes. Till next time.
Positional stuff is reactive. Like, you have to be able to react to positions first. I love jiu-jitsu because it's position before submission. Mm-hmm. You have to react to positions before anything else. So there's reactive stuff. But the responses is why you have a co-pilot, to help you see what you can't see and start noticing that. Or how are you playing defense and using a jab to find openings where you're still working, but you're thinking and going, oh, every time he does this, he's dropping his hand. And you're able to